Donk is one of the most insane riflers we've ever seen in Counter-Strike, but there is just one big problem. 99% of us can't aim like Donk. In fact, if we even tried going for half of the peaks Donk is going for, we'd probably get reported really quickly by our teammates. But that's why we're going to be talking about ropz, who, in my opinion, is one of the best Counter-Strike players to learn from. And it's all built on 3 core aiming principles. And the third one is something that most players have never even heard of. But by the end of this video, you're going to have mastered it just like the best pro players. So let's get into it. Real quick, most of the tools and game modes you see in this video are going to be created by Refrag. And I'm going to have a discount code by the end of this video, so make sure you stick around for that. So let's talk about Donk. First thing is that he often relies on having pretty insane micro adjustments. And this is pretty common, especially if you are an entry player like Donk. You have to clear a lot of angles very quickly, and sometimes you just have to make a quick adjustment. But there is a better, more consistent way to top frag and carry out games, and it's something we can use in both Faceit and Premiere. This is where ropz comes in, and he likes to take a much more methodical approach. The cool thing about ropz is that his aim is something that all of us can replicate, at least in theory. In reality, he has a lot more going on than just his aim, but when we're talking just about the aim, it's probably one of the easier ones to learn from and apply to our own game. So the first example relates to movement. In this example, ropz is holding ramp against mouse, and I want you to notice just how much ropz is moving in between each kill. In fact, with every kill he gets on this hold, he slightly repositions himself. And this is for 2 key reasons. Firstly, the enemy is going to pre-aim the last seen position of ropz, so he's going to be working with inaccurate information on his positioning. The second reason is that it's just much harder to kill someone who's moving around. If you're the T player in this scenario, there's a lot of angles to clear on ramp, where for ropz, he just has to look at one position, and they're all going to be coming from that one position. This is the first core principle of ropz's aim. Everyone knows about peeker's advantage, and by moving around even slightly when holding angles, you're removing at least some of that peeker's advantage for the T side. You're kind of giving yourself some peeker's advantage in a way. The key thing to remember is that you want to be the one peeking the opponent, not the other way around. Even in this example against FlyQuest, ropz is constantly repositioning after every kill and forcing his opponents to just keep guessing and keep reacting to his peaks. A lot of players just don't do this, and I think if you apply this to your game, you're going to find that you're a lot more consistent when holding angles and even multi-fragging on those angles. The second principle is also related to movement. It's called pre-aim. And yes, I know, this is something that everyone's talked about before, but there is a slight difference that pro players are using that we are not. The first thing is that ropz is never lazy about his pre-aim, and this is something that you'll actually notice a lot more if you re-watch your own games and compare them to a pro player. Pro players basically clear every single angle, where most of us as casual players don't really do that, even though we should. In this round, for example, ropz is controlling apps, and to do this, he has to watch both boiler and the end of halls. Now, if it was me doing this, I'd probably hold boiler for most of the time, and then check halls every now and again. And the thing that makes ropz so great to watch is just how meticulous he is when controlling this space. And there are 3 important things to pay attention to here. First, notice how ropz does not stop moving at all. And this of course comes back to the first principle that we talked about. He's making himself a harder target to hit and giving himself just a small edge even in this situation where he's holding halls. Second, ropz is going to hold boiler for most of the time and then check halls every now and again. And this is simply just due to how long it takes for the halls player to push up and kill him, whereas for the boiler player, he just has to come into boiler and peek ropz immediately to kill him. So it's a small thing that he's thought about even in this situation. The third, and possibly the most important thing, is when ropz peeks the boiler angle, notice how he crouches just before he peeks into the angle. And this is a very small thing, but if we look at the side by side here, you're going to notice that the enemy is going to be able to react way faster being on the lower angle. So when ropz peeks up from the crouch position, he actually gives himself a slight advantage, or at least a fair duel, where otherwise he would be losing that duel in most cases. There are so many examples of these types of small advantages in ropz gameplay, and honestly, it's such an important skill in CS2. Since the peeker's advantage is so strong, ensuring you have correct pre-aim is going to basically guarantee that you get your own kills. And the next principle is going going to enhance that skill even further. So the final principle is related to pre-aim, and it is something that really takes players like ropz and Nico and many other pro players to the next level. It's called player visualization, and it's something you might have heard of before, but most players really don't understand how to utilize it. When you peek an angle, most people go through a little bit of a mental checklist, even subconsciously. You peek the angle, you react to if an enemy is there, and then you make your adjustment to hit the headshot, and most likely you either get the kill or you die. And for the most part, this is how pro players clear angles as well. But there is a key difference, and that small difference is player visualization, and here's an easy way to kind of think about it. Let's say you were peeking an angle and you know 100% that there is an enemy on that angle. You are probably going to get that kill on the enemy and do it very quickly. And before you peek the angle, you were probably visualizing the enemy in that position, thinking about where they are standing and how you were going to peek them. Now, let's say you were peeking the exact same angle, but you're not 100% sure that someone is there or not. In this case, you probably have to adjust and react to someone being there. You might still get the kill, but you're probably not going to do it as quickly as when you knew that the enemy was holding that angle. And that's the key difference. In one situation, the kill actually feels much easier because you are visualizing the enemy in that position. It seems like a small difference, but one of the stats that I like to look at for myself is time to kill. Basically, the time between you spotting someone and killing them. And player visualization is going to improve that statistic a lot. Most Face It level 10 players are going to sit at around 800 to 900 milliseconds. But when it comes to pro players like ropz, Elige, and Nico, this statistic is closer to 500 to 700 milliseconds, which is actually a big difference in determining if you get the kill or get killed. And that begs the question, how can we improve our own aim to be just like ropz, and what can we do to improve that time to kill statistic? And this is where I'm going to be showing you some CS2 training tools that we can use to get aim just like ropz. Now, obviously, I'm going to be using Refrag because, in my opinion, it has the best CS2 training tools in Counter-Strike, and also it has something called Refrag Coach, which is basically just a personalized coach going to analyze your games and give you detailed statistics on how you can improve your own aim. So you basically have someone just training your aim and giving you advice on what you need to do to improve. It's pretty next level stuff, and if you want to give it a go, you can use the code ropz15 to get 15% off your subscription. Now, let's get into the training. Now, the first thing that we want to practice is our movement, and the way we're going to do this is using crossfire. We want to replicate the way ropz is moving between each kill. The key thing here is to focus on the movement part of this. You want to be moving at all times and coordinate your aim while doing this. Now, this is probably going to be pretty hard at the beginning, but once you start to practice this, you're going to feel a lot more fluid and confident in taking these aim drills while utilizing your movement, which is a big part of aiming in CS2. The next thing we're going to practice is just making sure you know how to clear your basic angles. And for this, we're going to be using Angle Trainer actually. And the reason we're using Angle Trainer is that it doesn't spawn in bots into every single location. Instead, it focuses on one small location and just 2 bots. And this is great for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we have to properly clear every angle because we don't know where the bots are going to be. And secondly, because the bots spawn in different locations, you have to get used to all of the possible angles that the bots could be in. This is one of the best ways, in my opinion, to train your crosshair placement. Finally, we're going to be using pre-fire. Now, Refrag's version of pre-fire is very different to anything you'd find on the workshop, and that's because the bots are going to spawn into different locations every single time. So every time you run this pre-fire map, it's going to be different from the last time you ran it, and that's going to train your aim to be ready for every single kill. And the thing we're going to be focusing on with pre-fire is actually our time to kill. We're going to be practicing our player visualization and focus on decreasing our time to kill as much as possible. Once you go through a session, Refrag is actually going to give you a summary of your stats. This is going to include multiple useful things, but obviously it also includes our time to kill. So basically, we're just going to work through this map multiple times and make sure we decrease our time to kill statistic as much as possible. So by practicing all of these game modes and being consistent with it, I can almost guarantee that your aim will improve and look more ropz-like by the day. So that's the video. Make sure you check out Refrag using the link below. Thanks for watching, and peace out.